Good morning or afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to another Zoom town hall for our 4-in-1s. Today we have with us Master Sergeant Jeffrey Alley joining us. He's our current S.M.A.R.T instructor, and I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to you, sir.
Hello, everyone. I'm Master Sergeant Jeffrey Alley. I've been in the military for about a little bit over 10 years. So my journey kind of started at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, or 2016, where I was there for 6 years, met some great people before getting orders to Nellis Air Force Base back in August 2016. I got there October 4th. And I belonged to Nellis for about 1 month. And then, I kind of learned a little bit about this position that was opening up called S.M.A.R.T. I didn't know what it was. And that's where I actually sat down and I was interviewed. At the time, the job was a pilot program owned by Nellis, and a Sergeant Hunt was running the program. He kind of started it and kind of got the groundwork done and worked with the local county hospital as far as getting in the relationships so that way we can go in there and work with them. And so I was interviewed, hired, and put into this position called S.M.A.R.T, which stands for Sustained Medical and Readiness Train Program. And the focus of S.M.A.R.T is CMRPs. So it's not so much training for deployments. However, the focus is just to get everyone up to speed. So MTFs, they lack a lot of the case availability in some of the locations. And that's kind of where this comes into play to make things better. And I wasn't really sure how I fit in that role, kind of coming in there as a tech select back in 2016, just getting to know who I was in that struggle, because I didn't have any background as far as instructing and trying to learn where to go. But it's nice when you get put into a job like this where you can kind of learn what S.M.A.R.T is. So S.M.A.R.T's it's not like C-STARS or E-MEDS. There's no didactics unless you want it to be. And the focus is all on hands-on clinical. So getting in there, scrubbing in those ORs. I know that Sergeant Leo Leha kind of mentioned that there's 22 ORs at UMC, University Medical Center. However, they've got 19 ORs in the main side, and then 3 endo suites. And then there's 3 trauma bays over on the trauma side, on the trauma tower. And they offer a plethora of specialties that the S.M.A.R.T cadre instructor will be working with. You'll be working with robots, burns, pediatrics, orthospine, major ortho. There's a lot. The ortho program here is pretty extensive since it's supporting the local population. They do burns, pediatrics, general, OBGYN, plastics, you name it, they do it here. This is the major installation that does a big burn program, and they also do organ transplants, which it really helps. So you might ask, like, why do I need to know all these things as far as like procurements and such? But doing these high acuity cases, that's where you kind of gain those experiences that you might not have done before. You just haven't done in a long time. So if you're like me, a Master Sergeant, old crusty, and you haven't done these skills for a while, coming through the program is great because you can kind of get your hands on these high acuity cases and be a little bit more prepared for downrange if you need those skills as far as major open bellies or doing an X-fix on a patient and just getting them ready for transport. So the major goal for S.M.A.R.T is supporting the MTF's needs for those high acuity procedures. And then another benefit, you might ask, like, what is this job? At first it was kind of tough. It was tough for me coming here because I'm looking at like, oh, my job is just surgical tech. I don't need to know anything else. I'm not sure whatever else there is in the medical group, all of the other AFSCs, the other jobs that support the same mission. One of the great benefits of working in S.M.A.R.T is you're working with 11 other personnel, and it ranges from your respiratory tech, med tech. You've got 4 nurses, 4 providers, and you got ICU nurse, ER nurse, there's a PACU nurse, and then obviously our awesome OR nurse counterpart that we work with. And then the providers are anesthesia, pulmonologist, there's an ER provider and a trauma physician. So it's great because you get to work with these people in one admin, and the fact that you get to work together as a team and kind of learn the role when you're working in like the trauma bay and having hands-on acuity, doing chest compressions and learning about how to assist doing IVs if you need, and just working in more of a dynamic team versus just sitting back in the OR is really interesting to kind of gain a wide variety of understanding of the skills. So that for me alone sold the job for me. Just being here and getting a better exposure of what medicine is. Sorry, the lights just turned out. So it's kind of tough, you know. What are the work hours and like the pros and cons of this type of job? There are 14 courses a year. These courses last for 2 weeks each time, and just depending on, so we do the schedule every year, and it ranges how many weeks or days are in between a class. So, you know, in the past, I've been here for 4 years, and I'll be here for another year, and I leave September 2021. So we'll be a part of the next fiscal year's developing of the calendar, but it ranges. So you might have like 1 month off in between a class, or you might have no weeks off and you're just doing back-to-back classes. And these classes, it's 2 weeks, so you have 9 clinical days where the rotators come in and they're shooting for 75 clinical hours, and that's your job to kind of elevate and expedite those procedures that they'll see. And the best thing about this job is it's a tailor-made program, so you don't have to sit there and say, okay, I have to do 4 ortho cases and 4, you know, general cases. No, it's nice because you might have an ortho shred that'll come through who might be really experienced when it comes to orthopedics, but he hasn't done any general or, you know, no ortho spine or neuro. He's probably never seen a craniotomy before. Well, you can focus in on trying to do maybe like 1 or 2 major ortho cases just to make sure they're proficient. Maybe they haven't done an IM nail in years. You can throw them in there and get them up to speed, and then look for those other acuity cases. Maybe they want to learn a little bit about how the robot works. You know, I don't focus mostly on the robot because once you get in there, it's, you know, it's once you see it, you're like, okay, this is great, and you're sitting around not gaining as much of your time, you know, benefited sitting here just watching people work. But it's really important for you to learn how the robot works, so it's kind of nice to go in there and get your hands on for maybe 1 case. But you know, it's nice because you have that flexibility where you can look for what people need and help them out and just spend that time. So 14 courses a year, 2 weeks, you know, there's going to be usually on average 2 surgical techs per course. Now, fiscal year 2021, the courses are all full up for the most part, unless there's like 1 vacancy. And you'll see, as far as like a cadre, if you were to come and replace me, that there are 3 slots for the OR, and we share it with nurses. So if 2 nurses enrolled, you only have one rotator with you. But since we're pretty awesome, we feel it. We always beat the OR nurses when it comes to demand for the positions. So it'll be a 2-to-1 max ratio as far as instructor rotator relationship. And it's nice because when you're not in class, in between class, you'll be focusing on. Sorry, I got a phone call. You'll be focusing in on yourself. You're developing yourself and developing a relationship. So you might ask, like, what's my main job as the 4-in-1 cadre here? Well, I personally believe the main job is working with UMC and getting to know them and kind of building that relationship and keeping the doors open. So it's just because you're military doesn't mean you're supported in every room and everyone loves you. You kind of have to go in there and actually build relationships and maintain them and get that access, so that when they see you, they don't know me as Sergeant Ali, they know me as Jeff, and they know me as Air Force, and they make fun of me, but it's all fun because once we get in there, it's game time, because they're going to support me and support my people getting in those cases. So they might be doing a craniotomy on a pediatric patient. They might be stressed, but they're going to see us and be like, "Oh, Air Force, come on in here. We love Jeff. You know, if you're with him, you're with us." And that's kind of nice because that way they kind of know, and they'll ask, they'll be like, "Hey, Jeff, is this person good, or they need a little bit more help?" So that way, if you want to do the first scrub as far as the rotator, you know, they can kind of guide, and we can all guide and get you prepped and primed and let you run the whole show. Or if you've never done something that's a little more intense, you know, you can sit back a little bit and kind of learn a little bit and then get you going. But you know, it's nice because you have to build that relationship with the people, and it's important for that to happen. But as far as me, when I first started S.M.A.R.T back in 2016, my focus was mostly in between class. I was scrubbing and spending all the time with UMC staff trying to build the relationship and trying to figure out what S.M.A.R.T meant, because it was nice to meet Sergeant Hunt, but he was kind of out the door quick. He had a deployment, so it was mostly up to me. And I didn't have any big instructorship background. I deployed once to Bagram, Afghanistan. I had a neuro experience and orthospine experience back at Wright Pat. And that was one of the tough things when it comes to learning this job and kind of getting to know what you need. And there's so many pros and cons when it comes to this type of job when you're working at a GSU. You might think like, oh, okay, in between class, I could spend 2 days clinical and then hang out for 2 or 3 days. But then time flies and you're not developing yourself, and you're that sole 4-in-1 instructor out at a GSU, geographically separated unit, and you're starting to get lost and you don't know how to develop yourself for future roles, whether or not you're trying to pursue NECP or IPAP, if you're trying to develop yourself and grow more in the military or plan for your futures on the outside. It's really tough. You can kind of get lost in these types of jobs, but it's important for you to know that in between class, those 1 to 2 days where you're just doing admin or building yourself up, whether or not you're volunteering at Nellis Air Force Base, which is our local installation. So you can kind of get plugged in with them and work with their leadership and try to develop yourself with some NCOs, senior NCOs, find a mentor over there. That's where I think the value you gain from this type of job happens, is not just doing 4-in-1 cadre, but also spending your time wisely and kind of getting out and learning a little bit and networking and making your connections. So that way you're better prepared, and it helps in the long run. So one of my issues, I think I started talking about kind of being at a GSU and not having any instructorship background. It's nice because you can kind of get into volunteering in your free time. Maybe you want to go work in the training department downtown or down at Nellis and do some TCCC instructorship, instruct some classes or stop the bleed, or USAF-SAM, which is the mothership. So back in 2018, USAF-SAM took S.M.A.R.T over. So it transitioned from a pilot program to an official program. So think about like eMed, C-STARS, these training platforms. USAF-SAM owns them. So it's nice that S.M.A.R.T was adopted by them and kind of standardized to make sure that we're kind of doing everything right the way we should. And we fall under them, but they offer a lot, a plethora of options as far as developing yourself. So they do BIC online right now due to COVID, which has been a struggle in its own right. But, taking those classes, you're not taking it for the didactics. You're just taking it just in case you need a little extra mindset on how to work and get your rotators to open up. Because, as an instructor, you might not know, or realize if you've never done it before, but your whole job is to kind of open that person coming through and get them to be passionate and maybe invest in themselves and take some cases, because this isn't an easy job. Coming here for 2 weeks as a rotator, maybe you haven't scrubbed for years. And even myself, coming here, it's a steep hill to learn. You might not be comfortable scrubbing, a trauma case or doing chest compressions you've never done before, but, getting in there and getting dirty is the best part about this job, and the best part about instructing people or just being a mentor to people. I think the 4-in-1 position's more about mentorship than anything else, which I know over the last 4 years, people have probably suffered listening to financial briefings and professional development with me during lunch or in between cases, just because I think that's the best thing about this job is you can spend so much one-to-one time with people that you can kind of get to know them and who they are and what they want, their goals, their life things. So, that's for me the best pro about this position is you're not sitting here focusing on just the person hitting boxes. You can actually invest and get to know the people. But I think what made me want to do this job was, of course, I kind of fell into it. There was at the time, he was a senior master sergeant Chavez, but he's Chief Chavez now. He pulled me into his office, and I was a tech select back in August 2016. And when I recently PCS'd to Nellis, and he basically had that conversation with me saying, hey, you're a tech sergeant. I expect you to meet those standards. I'm gonna hold you to those standards. I don't care if you're a staff sergeant, you're in this position. And then that's kind of when I was like, oh, I need to step up my game. I'm kind of getting complacent. I should take some, things under my wing, try to do something new that's uncomfortable. So, just taking S.M.A.R.T and kind of jumping into it and learning about it and learning on the fly really helped me kind of develop myself a little bit. Obviously I got a lot to learn, but I think these types of jobs are important for people to step into, so you can kind of get away from the MTF and see what medicine's really like and everything around it as far as how the whole thing works. One of the great things about working at UMC is you work with the other team members, just like SOS, Special Operations Surgical Team. So we got Jay Hall and Leo Leha and their whole plethora of team that come through. So kind of getting to learn who they are and what their missions are and how that impacts, and being able to point some people who are interested in it to them and kind of set them up. It's also, really, really cool because they do a lot of missions down here, which you can kind of get in on. And they're always offering as far as training, which, I would never get that offer back at Right Pat, but it's something really cool to see here. But, there's a lot of likes and dislikes about the job. And obviously all of our likes and dislikes vary between who you are and what you got going on in your life compared to me and what I'm doing. So maybe my likes and dislikes aren't the same as yours, but, the pros, the job is flexible. It's important for you to know that if you're going to come to this type of job that's got extra hours in between class where you're minimal supervision, it comes down to integrity. Sorry, I have to take a drink of this cowboy cup. It comes down to integrity and knowing that no one's watching and you're kind of doing what you should be doing. So when I say that is those multiple days off, you can't be hanging out at home doing nothing, or saying you got fake appointments and sneaking around, or not doing what you should be doing. You're here to learn, you're here to invest and become better so you can help your people out and do something better. But I love the hours. I love how it supports my ability to support my family in between classes. So those 2 weeks, it's very much discouraged that you don't take any leave, which is one of the cons. Is you're committed to the rotators being here, being for them, and making sure they get what they need, because they're here learning, and that's your job. Is your whole job is just to take care of those people. And that's one of the difficulties. However, in between class, that's when you can kind of step back and invest in your family a little bit, spend a little bit of time working out in the morning, staying in shape. The program flexibility is, if you find a need and something changes, you can work with it. So, if there's like a requirement that happens in the military, maybe we swap the TCCC training as a requirement, and how can I implement that? Because now it's a new S.M.A.R.T program, and is there any more like training I can get them in on and work with, and maybe cut out a day of scrubbing? That could be a benefit, something you can look at. But it's really flexible and able to work around what you want, what you need to do. There's another pro that I think, and it could be a con too, if you're not being proactive, is being an instructor. So this is a 4-year commitment is difficult, because you're gonna be doing the same job for 4 years. I wrote the same EPR bullet 4 years straight. It's not gonna work. So you're gonna have to find ways to change up who you are, rewrite that bullet and change a little bit to something different, but at the same time, you can write yourself, excuse me, you can write yourself well in this job, because of course you're going to be sitting here focused on training, but you can also get plugged in at Nellis, and you can do a lot of training and get involved in their professional development groups, or you can I'm talking too much. Or you can work with UMC. So they've got a lot of like CEUs, or there's some MASCAL training options that they do, and they they have a lot of options as far as like supporting their patient population, as far as training or celebrations of survivors that they do every year. And they also have a big training platform where they'll actually go downtown to some of like the local high schools and and teach the teachers as far as like stop the bleed and kind of learning how to respond for traumas that happen just in like your day-to-day life. Someone gets into an accident or something happens, and how to save a life. So just getting involved in that stuff is really important, because out here it's a 4-year controlled tour, and as a young NCO coming here, you're on an island. You're kind of out by yourself doing what you can. Sorry, excuse me. just trying to survive. So, just learning how to use those skills that you gain as far as leadership and like people skills work for helping people out. Even if you want to do this in like outside of the military, it translates well because, you're working with 2 other schools that bring their own students here, and they have 3 students each, and they're basically like the civilian equivalent instructor. So, there's always that option. Or, working with a TAA, training affiliation agreement, which is what gets us in the door at UMC, and understanding how that works and how it's written and being involved in that process when they renew it is important, because you can kind of gain those understandings on how to network and get embedded in other programs, other organizations. So it applies to what you would do on the outside of the military, but I would say most importantly is like that mentorship, that leadership skills you get from just working with people and having them mentor and teach you, and learning about like scrub techs from all across the Air Force is really cool, because there's so many different missions that people are doing across the Air Force wide, and it's kind of nice to see what they're doing, so you can kind of reflect and see, is that something that we should be doing, and kind of just learning about what everyone's doing. But as far as getting in the job and learning what's going on, how to apply in the selection process is really straightforward, and it just happened. So I know everyone probably saw like on Facebook, as far as the listing that the job was open, and it closed out the 19th of this month is it. So basically what happens is there's a code on cadre, and as an instructor, cadre, this position's listed on AMS as a job, which is great because now it's no longer a selected position local at Nellis. So it gives it Air Force wide attention for anyone that meets criteria so they can apply, which is great. So there's no bias. It's 100%. Do you meet requirements, and can we get you in as far as cadre? So what'll happen is the job ad will open up on AMS, and all people who meet criteria are basically go on AMS, look, and they're going to realize, okay, I hit the button, but there's this Spec Act B.26, which lists the required items that the member needs to fill out and see if they meet those requirements. So some of those listed items would be like 3 PRs, fitness, their 422 saying that they can speak and there's no issues that as an instructor we'd be concerned about, and having that support from that commander who's going to sign and endorse that member as well, along with a few other items. So once they compile these items and they submit them to the POC, then that POC is going to hold on to those items until the closeout date, and then he's just going to go through, or that member, a couple other people basically sit down. Does the person meet the requirements, and do they have a CCAF, or are they close enough within a year to get it? Do they have their CST? Just for the 4-in-1 position, there's not a lot of verbiage that limits us as far as like any additional certifications besides the CST and your CCAF. So those are basically the meets requirement. It's really hard for us to sit there and say, you don't have all the clinical experience. So you might be thinking, oh, I'm just like Sergeant Alley back in 2016. I've only been to one base. I haven't done enough. Can I apply? Yes, you can, because the best part about this job is you'll come here and you'll learn and you'll gain all those skills here by sitting here and scrubbing and building that relationship. So you'll gain the burn experience, the trauma. It'd be great if you already had heart experience and you're able to help develop the relationship in the heart room team, which is always difficult because that's a very high acuity room. But again, you just have to meet those requirements, and it's kind of tough. So when we looked at the job ad that was listed this month, there's a lot of questions where people ask, like, I'm a staff sergeant or I'm a master sergeant. Can I apply? Is it one up or one down? It's tough because we don't want masters coming here. Again, this is a staff to tech position, I would believe, I would want to say, but however, a good seasoned staff, which we can't guarantee. So we'd want someone that's a tech sergeant coming here, because again, you're that NCO, you're on an island. You shouldn't be here learning about how to survive in the military. You should be here learning how to take care of your people and have that background and know how to network and get out of your comfort zone and be able to work in the gray and try to figure out how to make programs work, something you've never done before. But it's tough. I know there's a lot of people that are interested, and it's a great job. So, and just to say, I know that some people who applied, I believe the member was selected, and I'm not sure if that person's notified, but hopefully within like the next week or 2 weeks, we'll be able to announce who my replacement will be in the new POC for S.M.A.R.T, since this is the only current position in the Air Force at the time. But I don't have access to the Q&A. Is anyone still there? I think that's everything I got.
No, I think this is Sergeant Nahar. Hello, everyone. I just wanted to kind of ask Sergeant Alley some questions. I think you did a very good job giving detail as far as what you've done, how to keep yourself busy. Obviously, from what you shared with us is you have to be self-motivated to figure out ways to keep yourself engaged, not only with the course that you're managing, but also how you develop yourself as a member. So some of the things that you mentioned, I mean, spot on, that you were able to, get involved with Nellis Air Force Base. I'm sure the challenges that you had with being assigned to USASM, which is technically at Wright-Patterson. How do you, look for mentors and how you reach out for professional development for yourself? So I think you've done a very good job of doing those things. I know you reached out to me when I first got here in December of last year, and keeping yourself engaged of what's going on in the career field. And that's what I want to challenge to the next person that got selected for the position, is that you really have to be self-motivated, self-driven, because yes, you can get into that mindset of stagnant and just day to day. Because I know the routine after 2 years, possibly 3 years, is like Groundhog Day all over again with me teaching at EMED. So I understand that mentality, and people tend to fall into that. But like you mentioned, flexibility, as long as you're meeting the intent, people are getting the scrubbing hours, the exposure of switching it up. If you're given that autonomy to maybe say, hey, instead of scrubbing all day today, let's go and do a course or get a lecture in there that would benefit those folks that are assigned to a GST or a UTC deployment, UTC. Anything is better than nothing. So definitely appreciate that. I think some of the questions that I had for you regarding challenges that you had with students, any difficult students that you ever had to send any of them home, or have to reach out to their units to say, hey, you sent me somebody who's very challenging and is not wanting to follow the rules, the policies that we have set in place for the program. Have you had any challenges like that?
Yeah, so over the years, I've been here for 4 years again, and I've had a variety of students. It ranges from people that are very passionate and they come here and they blow it out of the water. They're here working hard, and they want to scrub the max amount of cases. And then there's one guy that scrubbed 28 surgical procedures, because as soon as I told him the max someone's done, he wanted to do more. And then I've had the people that are completely the opposite, where you can tell their passion's not scrubbing and that's not what they want to do or they're comfortable with. And it's just trying to find what people want, motivate them. I've had difficult people who don't like direction, where if you tell them to do something, they don't want to listen to you. It's almost like demeaning. I'm not sure what their background was, but anytime I would ask him to do something, it had to be almost like a direct order, because he would not listen. And working with that person just took extra work, where you would actually have to like sit down and talk to him and be like, hey, what's going on? Why are you not listening? What is it that's we're not connecting between our communication? And I think part of it was learning how to be like a people person, where you can kind of connect, because my goal isn't to make it mandatory, or not like mandatory, but when it comes to like communication, like go scrub this case now. My goal is to, I want them to go in there, because if that person's going to go in the room and they're already a little agitated, and then they're going to get that impression off with UMC, that's going to be counterproductive, and that's not what I want. So I've had one person where I pulled the person out and I was like, look, you're not going to scrub for the next 2 days. We're going to sit down, we're going to talk, we're going to hang out in case there's a trauma, but it's you and me, we're talking. And that was more of a call, just because I was worried that they themselves didn't care about scrubbing, and I didn't want them to impact our relationship with UMC. So it's not so much on the airman, it's also the bigger picture. I don't want the next person to be, their experience to be ruined because, going in the heart room, you decide that you want to talk to the provider differently. You decide that you want to, say things that are inappropriate to that heart surgeon, which is going to ultimately, block us from being able to do any aortic valve replacements or AAAs or anything. So, sometimes it's just working with people to get them to open up, but also pulling them out, knowing when it's time to do that, or redirecting. And, if someone doesn't want to come here and scrub and do something, we write these reports at the end of the course. So it's almost like a report card. It's got a bunch of like boxes. Do they meet, or do they need more work? And some of the topics would be like scrubbing, professionalism, and it's professionalism as far as like working with UMC staff members, or also working with us or the patients. So you can kind of like write notes up. And I have written notes as far as like, this person, I had issues, not being compliant, not interested in learning scrubbing, doing some inappropriate conversations with the staff members. Thankfully though, for the most part, I've only probably had like 3 or 4 people come through that were terrible, that needed extra hands-on where you had to work with them. But I have reached back only like once, as far as like, hey, supervisor, this is what I had to experience with this person, just a heads up, but nothing to the extreme. Because in the most common experience that I have with any rotator coming through is they love the escape from their local base. They like to come out where it's nothing but scrubbing and just doing some cool cases and doing things that they want. And most of the time when you sit there and get to know the person that's coming through, they like to talk and get to know who I am and who they are, and just getting on a personal level, as far as, this is what you're here for, but let's figure out what else you want. And that usually kind of deters people from acting out or causing any conflict with the program. So I haven't had any crazy major issues, just a lot of minor stuff where it was just a one-on-one mentorship and learning how to do that. Again, you're that young tech sergeant, or you might not have the experience with talking with someone and telling them, hey, you aren't good today, something's wrong, we need to talk, and even identifying. So we don't talk about it that much, but this type of job can really weigh on the person. So as far as things you're going to be a part of, obviously, for my replacement, you're going to be here for a long time, and a long time of exposure. So you might be seeing trauma on and off over the years while you're here, depending on if you're scrubbing yourself or with a rotator, or even doing those organ procurements. And those things are really cool for rotators to be a part of, and it's important for you to know for yourself and for the rotator is, you might be doing an organ procurement on a 4-month-old baby boy, and that stuff is tough. It's tough for your soul. It's tough for you to deal with, and learning how to deal with that, and mental management and being willing to talk to people is important, but also recognizing those scenarios and being able to support the rotators, because, not a lot of military scrub techs have seen someone pass away, but being here in S.M.A.R.T, it's a trauma hospital. All the other AFSCs, as far as like SOS, I'm sure anyone that's deployed, or even at the local MTS where you've seen someone pass away, it breaks hearts. It's not easy to deal with. Some people manage it well, other people shut down, and being able to talk to your rotators and just saying, hey, there's help, communicate with me, let me know what's going on if you need something. But that's something you also have to consider as far as supporting the rotators. It might not be them acting out. They might just be, struggling with one of like the cases that they saw that they were here and now they're kind of, becoming reserved or they're scared, just working with those things. It's really unpredictable on how people respond to stuff. So I hope that answers your question, sir.
Yeah, it did. I think a few questions I have for you, obviously being Lone Ranger out there, the only 4-in-1, how challenging was it for you to stay engaged with the career field and also meeting the CMRP requirements for you? Who was documenting those in your MERDIS record? I'm just curious to know, and I think that's something we need to make sure that we prepare for whoever replaces you. But pretty much just, it can be a challenge to stay engaged, but how did you deal with some of those things and also the CMRP stuff?
So it was great that I initially started at Nellis. So I was able to build my relationship with them. I had a senior NCO at Nellis who was able to, see what my mission was and what I was doing here. And as far as I would show the case log, hey, I did these stuff, are you able to support me and sign me off in MERDIS or sign me off in after? And it's a little bit of a struggle. So being at GSU, you're going to work with the mothership back at USAP-SAM in Dayton, Ohio. And a lot of that comes down with, the education and training department, which they actually own it as far as like education and training POCs, but they're not going to sign stuff off for you. So having a senior NCO that's willing to sign off is not something, you're asking them to validate you on something that they might not have oversight on you for. But it's one way, and that's what I had to do back in 2018 with a NCO from Nellis Air Force Base. And that's just one of the struggles is being able to stay plugged in with it. And that's, again, just hooking up with Nellis and learning what's going on with them, or staying plugged in with the CFM and what their career plans or their future goals are for the career field is really important. And trying to align with that and learn what they want and seeing if you can meet any of those requirements is important. That's one of the reasons why I tried to stay in touch with you, Senior Master Sergeant Nahar, is just because I know you've got future plans. And I just want to see if we can meet those needs here and how I support that.
Awesome. No, man, I think you're doing a great job, and I'm proud of the things that you've done with the program and obviously your progression, getting promoted. I'm excited for you. I know you're going to Yokota come next year, September timeframe. And I think, we've already had conversations making sure that you stay engaged and do whatever you need to do prior to your departure so that you're better prepared for managing folks at the flight level. So definitely provided that information to you. That, I'm always available if you have any questions or concerns. I know I'll be leaving here in about 2 months, but please let me know if there's anything I could do for you. You did an awesome job. Just kind of, you covered everything. I had some questions to ask you. You answered, for the most part, all of them. Very detailed information for folks in the future that want to apply for it and may just not even know. Maybe they've never gone through the S.M.A.R.T program. That kind of gives them that understanding. What is that expectation? Because sometimes some folks don't know about it, and to be honest with you, supervisors or flight chiefs, don't remember some of the programs, or they forget to try to plug different airmen in, or NCOs. And for them to see this information will kind of hopefully spark them to say, hey, I would like to do a rotation if possible through S.M.A.R.T, especially if they haven't scrubbed as much and maybe they need that experience. And like you mentioned before, just break up the monotony from their base to see something different, especially at a civilian hospital. Because I've scrubbed part-time in my previous bases and definitely got to see the difference between civilian hospitals and military hospitals. So even just that exposure or see something that you could potentially bring back to your MTF definitely is value added. So thank you for everything. Thank you for what you do, what you continue to do until you depart. And we just definitely appreciate that. And Sergeant Kaloides, thank you again for putting this together. I know we got another one coming up and at least 2 more. So just stay tuned and see what else we got to share with you guys.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate and I definitely will stay plugged in. You know, it's really important, and I really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Sergeant Kaloides, for setting this up.
Okay.
No problem. As Sergeant Nahar said, we're going to have 2 more of these coming up. We don't have specific dates yet because we're just trying to realign people's schedules, but stay tuned with Facebook notifications, and I'll try to post when we're going to have those, what the dates and times will be. And that's all we have for you today. Thanks and have a great day.